Dame Antonia Susan Duffy DBE, known as A.S.Byatt, is an English novelist, poet and Booker Prize winner. In 2008, The Times newspaper named her on its list of the 50 greatest British writers since 1945. Biography. Byatt was born in Sheffield as Antonia Susan Drabble, the eldest child of John Drabble, QC, and Kathleen Blore, a scholar of Browning. Her sisters are the novelist Margaret Drabble and the art historian Helen Langdon. Her brother Richard Drabble QC is a barrister. The family moved to York as a result of the bombing of Sheffield during the Second World War. Byatt's upbringing was fairly unhappy as she struggled against her domineering mother. She was educated at two independent boarding schools, Sheffield High School and the Quaker Mount School in York. She noted in an interview in 2009, "I am not a Quaker, of course, because I am anti-Christian and the Quakers are a form of Christianity, but the religion is wonderful. You simply sat in silence and listened to the nature of things." She did not enjoy boarding school, citing her need to be alone and her difficulty in making friends. She went on to Newnham College, Cambridge, Bryn Mawr College in the United States, and Somerville College, Oxford. Byatt lectured in the Department of Extramural Studies of the University of London, the Central School of Art and Design, and from 1972 to 1983 at University College London. She married Ian Charles Rayner Byatt in 1959 and had a daughter, as well as a son who was killed in a car accident at the age of 11. The marriage was dissolved in 1969. She has two daughters with her second husband, Peter John Duffy. Byatt's relationship with her sister Margaret Drabble has sometimes been strained due to the presence of autobiographical elements in both their writing. While the relationship is no longer especially close and they do not read each other's books, Drabble describes the situation as normal sibling rivalry, and Byatt says it has been terribly overstated by gossip columnists, and that the sisters always have liked each other on the bottom line. Writing career. The story of a young girl growing up in the shadow of a dominant father. Byatt's first novel, The Shadow of the Sun, was published in 1964. Her novel The Game charts the dynamics between two sisters, and the family theme is continued in her quartet The Virgin in the Garden, Still Life, Babel Tower, and A Whistling Woman. Still Life winning the Penn Macmillan Silver Pen Award in 1989. Her quartet of novels is inspired by D.H. Lawrence, particularly The Rainbow and Women in Love. Describing mid-20th century Britain, the books follow the life of Frederica Potter, a young intellectual studying at Cambridge at a time when women were heavily outnumbered by men at the university, and then tracing her journey as a divorcee with a young son making a new life in London. Byatt says some of the characters in her fiction represent her greatest terror, which is simple domesticity. I had this image of coming out from under and seeing the light for a bit and then being shut in a kitchen, which I think happened to women of my generation. Like Babel Tower, A Whistling Woman touches on the utopian and revolutionary dreams of the 1960s. She describes herself as a naturally pessimistic animal. "I don't believe that human beings are basically good, so I think all utopian movements are doomed to fail, but I'm interested in them." She has written critical studies of Dame Iris Murdoch, who was a friend, mentor and a significant influence on her own writing. In those books and other works, Byatt alludes to and builds upon themes from Romantic and Victorian literature. She conceives of fantasy as an alternative to, rather than an escape from, everyday life, and it is often difficult to tell when the fantastic in her work actually represents the eruption of psychosis. "In my work," she notes, "writing is always so dangerous. It's very destructive. People who write books are destroyers. Possession parallels the emerging relationship of two contemporary academics with the past of two 19th-century poets whom they are researching. It won the Booker Prize in 1990 and was made into a film in 2002. Byatt's novella Morpho Eugenia, included in Angels and Insects, was turned into the successful film with the same title, nominated for an Academy Award. Her novel The Children's Book was shortlisted for the 2009 Man Booker Prize and won the James Tate Black Memorial Prize. Also known for her short stories, Byatt has been influenced by Henry James and George Eliot as well as Emily Dickinson, T.S. Eliot, and Robert Browning, emerging realism and naturalism with fantasy. Her story collections include Sugar and Other Stories, The Djinn and the Nightingale's Aunt, a collection of fairy tales, elementals, stories of fire and ice, and Little Black Book of Stories. The Matisse Stories features 3 pieces, each describing a painting by Henri Matisse, each the tale of an initially smaller crisis that shows the long present unraveling in the protagonists' lives. Her books reflect a continuous interest in zoology, entomology, geology, and Darwinism among other repeated themes. Byatt has written for media including the British journal Prospect, The Guardian, The Times and The Times Literary Supplement. She has been a judge on many literary award panels including the Hawthornden Prize, the Booker, David Hyam Prize for Fiction, and the Betty Trask Award. On the role of writing in her life, she says, "I think of writing simply in terms of pleasure. It's the most important thing in my life, making things. Much as I love my husband and my children, I love them only because I'm the person who makes these things. Who I am, is the person that has the project of making a thing. Well, that's putting it pompously, but constructing. I'd see it in sort of 3-dimensional structures. And because that person does that all the time, the person is able to love all these people." Memberships. 1974–77 Social Effects of Television Advisory Group BBC. 1977–82 Associate of Newnham College, Cambridge. 1978–84 Board of Communications and Cultural Studies, CNAA. 1985–87 Board of Creative and Performing Arts, CNAA. 1987–88 Kingman Committee of Inquiry into the Teaching of English Language. 1984–88 Management Committee, Society of Authors. 1993–98 Board, British Council. 2014 American Academy of Arts and Sciences, Foreign Honorary Member. Prizes and awards. Works. Fiction. 1964 The Shadow of the Sun, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 1967 The Game, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 1978 The Virgin in the Garden, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 1985 Still Life, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 1990 Possession, A Romance, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 1992 Angels and Insects, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 1997 Babel Tower, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 2000 The Biographer's Tale, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 2002 A Whistling Woman, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 2009 The Children's Book, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 2011 Ragnarok, The End of the Gods, Canongate. Short Story Collections. 1987 Sugar and Other Stories, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 1993 The Matisse Stories, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 1994 The Djinn and the Nightingale's Aunt, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 1998 Elementals, Stories of Fire and Ice, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 2003 Little Black Book of Stories, Chatto and Amp, Windus. Essays and Biographies. 1965 Degrees of Freedom, The Early Novels of Iris Murdoch, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 1989 Unruly Times, Wordsworth and Coleridge, Poetry and Life, Hogarth Press. 1991 Passions of the Mind, Selected Writings, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 1995 Imagining Characters, 6 Conversations about Women Writers, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 2000 On Histories and Stories, Selected Essays, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 2001 Portraits in Fiction, Chatto and Amp, Windus. 5 August 2016 Peacock and Amp, Vine. On William Morris and Mariano Fortuny, Nof ISBN 9781101947470. Texts edited 1970 Wordsworth and Coleridge in the Time, Nelson. 1976 Iris Murdoch, A Critical Study, Longman. 1990 George Eliot, Selected Essays, Poems and Other Writings, Penguin. 1995 New Writing Volume 4, Vintage. 1997 New Writing Volume 6, Vintage. 1998 Oxford Book of English Short Stories, Oxford University Press. 2001 The Bird Handbook, Graphis Inc.